and we'll get started. Okay, I don't think you can see my title. Let me stop the screen share. Hey, Tim, good to see you. I'm going to spot.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, like we weren't just talking moments ago. I'm going to add two spotlights here for you and I, so I can officially welcome everybody and say, welcome. Thursday, August 26th is the day we are getting together for the weekly briefing. This is the moment when Tim and I stop from all the weekly craziness and we put our heads together with our team and we say, what's going on out there? What do people need to be aware of? What's right? Like what's the hot button, or what are people talking about, or what's a trend or something that we're spotting that we want to talk about? So today, Tim, we're talking about imposter syndrome. And I'm kind of excited to get into this because we're going to talk about a big idea concept that you have in the fourth stage. But before we get into that, let me just let you say hello.
Yeah, it's good to be with you this week. You know, these discoveries, because it really is just a moment of focus in the whole group and asking, what's a big question? How do we coach people and give them some thoughts to move forward? And this week's discussion about imposter syndrome 2.0, it's not the initial imposter syndrome of, anyone accept me as a business owner? Am I legitimate? But am I actually a contributor to the overall community? Do people, will they accept me, I guess, as a person with expertise? And I suffered with it totally. It's very interesting. And I'll say, like, I remember going to the F5 conference, and it's probably the first time I could stand up on stage and I just knew everything I was going to talk about. I wasn't guessing. I didn't have to put things into a bucket. It just, maybe some of those early catalyst meetings, but just talking from your heart. It's a very different way of presenting this. And I think that's what we're going to get to today is there's something inside of you. How do we just get it out that other people, that you can contribute to the big picture community?
Well, let me give everyone the context for maybe why this topic even came up for this week. So I've been having a bunch of conversations with owners that are interested in leveling up, call it, they're at that $500,000 or $1 million level. And they're like, hey, we want to kind of move from this emerging season into a thriving season, and helping them understand maybe what is out ahead. Of course, this is also in preparation for my next jumpstart that's going to happen sometime later in September. And one thing I've noticed, it's a recurring theme, is every owner, and I'm sure this is true of everybody here, has bumped up against this imposter syndrome thing, which is very real. Probably everyone's probably familiar with it. And what I'm noticing is people are maybe sensing that there's something else out there, but all they can think of is their current reality extrapolated, meaning if my company is going to be successful and I'm going to have a great career, it's just more of this, right? Like I'm running this company and I'm going to go from $500,000 to $1 million, or I'm going to go from 1 million to 2 million. And that's it, right? And I'm encouraging people to think about, well, there's something even larger than that, because your business is one thing, but your career is actually something much, much larger. So we've been talking to people about this idea of, in Jumpstart, we call it part of marketing. We talk about it as part of getting yourself out there to, of course, attract better clients, create visibility, share your expertise, all these things that lay the groundwork for more clients, bigger budgets, all that kind of thing. But it actually dovetails into a much bigger idea. Mm-hmm. that is your thing, Tim. How it plugs into the fourth stage concept.
Yeah, what I hear people, I believe that the solutions sound the same when we talk about it, and the evolution we're talking about in this part of your life is not always a focus on, can you put more inside the current bucket? How do I just double my revenue, triple my revenue, add more employees, which is a problem to solve. But I call that problem, or I call that phase of your career, the auteur stage. It's the one where other people are doing the work, and then you have one kind of solo, recognition of what that work is. So that might be your company's brand, that might be you as a person, but that, a large corporation kind of has an entity or a brand name on top of that. And that's a good job to do. And we talk about our sales and our marketing pipeline. That's huge. But there's an evolution in your career to move from this auteur stage to what I call the curator stage. And that the in the 4 stages, maybe I have that graphic, maybe it's a good time to share.
Let me pull that up because I've got that here.
Yeah. I'm not sure everyone's familiar with it. I'm so familiar with this stuff, sometimes I forget that other people might not be totally familiar with it. But there are 4 stages to your creative career. The first stage is this artist stage. That's when you are doing the work. The auteur stage, I say this is when other people do the work, but you get credit for it. And I don't mean it in a bad way. I just mean like when you say a Steven Spielberg film, you know that there are hundreds of people working on it, but that director name is attached to it. The moving from the A side of the stages to the C side takes my little phrase, other peopleness. It's moving beyond just this solo thing that you're doing and building, but how do you gain momentum and help others along the way? So the curator stage, the one we're going to talk about today, is this one. Imagine like a gallery owner where you are bringing artists in and you're selling their work, but your job is to promote others. And that's how it comes back to you. This last stage, the collector stage, we won't get into very far today, but this is why people pay $1 million for a piece of art and hang it on the wall of a museum for free. That the economy totally changes in that last stage. When we're talking about this imposter syndrome 2.0, what we're really trying to get people to think about is like, I don't want you to think about this solution as an auteur problem. You know, how do I grow my capability, get more people to follow me, right? Other people do the work, I get the credit. The me factor, the question is how do I get you to evolve this thinking in that you're going to contribute to community and you might not recognize it coming back to you. There's going to be a bigger build there, but that evolution is a very strong evolution for you and your business and the overall capabilities of you within an industry.
So now I can say this to everyone here because Tim and I just said, why don't we be really vulnerable and transparent with people and sort of speak from our stories? Because many of you know I ran a studio production company of my own for 20 years. And Tim, if you had shown me that diagram, right, guess what I would have thought? I would have been like, oh, so Impossible Pictures, yes, I'm in this auteur stage. And so for me to go to the curator means this. But actually for me, it meant 20 years, that chapter closed, and then I became a consultant, right? So it's almost like, oh, wait a minute, there's a much larger meta to this story. And we thought it would be fun to actually give people a peek inside what that journey has been like for me, for you, because there's more out there. And I don't think I ever knew it. I was, in year 19 of my business, I thought, I'm just going to keep on doing this kind of till the day I die, right? And then I woke up one day and realized this doesn't do it for me anymore. There's more out there and I don't know what it is. But the only bucket I had was my studio. So I just couldn't see it. And of course, thank you for pointing that out to me and being like, Joel, right?
Yeah.
There's come do this. This is the next step.
You had so much more to give than just starting over or doing something else or giving it to some other company in the same role you were doing. And I think that's what I recognized in you, that thought like, okay, there's an evolution that takes place that other people need to kind of pinpoint and put there. But here's the saying, right? The one that you said exactly. I can tell you almost everyone that runs a business tells me, I'm just going to do this until I die. Yeah. And then I'm going to give you breaking news. No, you're not. You're not doing this until you die.
Right.
More likely, the industry will pass you more than you're ready to get out, right? So better to burn out than to fade away kind of a moment. Like there's this thing of like, hey, how do I actually capture what I'm doing now to evolve into what's important later on in my career? But running a business, you're not going to be a 50-year-old, you're not going to be running your business for 50 years. You're not going to do it, but it's possible you can live a career for 50 years if you do it right and you elevate your career right. And that was what I was meeting older men that basically were calling RevThink and saying, hey, can you help me launch a new studio at 70 years old or 65 years old? And I was thinking, I can't. Like, there isn't 20 years left to contribute to grow the business where it needs to be. But there were things true about these men that I could push forward into different areas. And that's the 4 stages kind of developed that way.
Well, I was going to share this little diagram quickly because I know we're going to also, time's going to go fast on us here, because this might give everybody here a kind of an interesting takeaway. So this diagram I'm going to share is actually a concept that we go through in the fourth Jumpstart module. And it's this idea of, in the old days, which means pre-COVID, in the old days, right? We used to do marketing by just doing like cold outreach and email blasts and going on social media and just stirring up all kinds of interest and hopefully getting people to come in and work with us and so forth. And there's this new concept that I call attracting better clients. And when I teach this concept, everyone has that moment of like, oh yeah, I got over my imposter syndrome when I started putting myself out there, talking to clients, convincing them to hand me a big project. But now what? Do I just keep doing that? Do I scale that up? How do I continue growing? So this is going to be still the auteur season when I share this. So here's my little diagram, and I want everyone to just take notice of this. There's this idea that in your business that you are generally communicating with the world in one of three ways: broadcasts or conversations or community. And I call these sort of like good, better, and best. Look at broadcasts. This is what you would call things like we do marketing, like email blasts and or a podcast or social media or something. That's just this one.
Like a social media post is an easy one. People, they basically put out there, broadcast it out, other people read it, but it's only one-way conversation.
Yes. And most everybody here kind of knows this and is probably doing it and thinks, yep, that's good marketing. Well, then this next thing is conversations. Because what if I say, well, wait a minute, it's way more powerful if I can put you in the room with three people, because now it's live and it's got all this humanity and personality. It's much more compelling. This is how you go into a room and sell a $100,000 project, right? This is a conversation. The problem is, of course, it's not scalable. So this leap that I try to get everyone to go through is this recognition of, I think everybody's on a journey where you're going to have this otherness, other peopleness, as actually part of your marketing. And it looks like this. So here's your company in the middle, and there's other people around you. These could be clients, vendors, whatever, but notice how all the conversations are happening between all the participants. And so these things are like, we're going to do a workshop. We're going to host an event. We're going to do an open house party. I mean, there's any number of what it looks like. What's cool about it, of course, is that it's personable. It's also scalable. It generates referrals because this community talks amongst themselves. It's fast. Of course, the con is it's very difficult. Now, this example, I think what's so interesting here, Tim, is when you look at this leap, it's this other peopleness thing happening in the ingredient of marketing. But in a way, I would say to someone, this is also just laying the groundwork for other peopleness in your career, like getting you out of this idea of, well, if I just create a bunch of cool work and we share it with the world and we have a great demo reel and we call people now and then, my business is going to grow. But I would say, yeah, but it's just that bucket.
Yeah. If you go back to that graphic for a second, you'll see, for obvious reasons, your career is going to evolve from auteur to curator inside of the auteur stage, right? You have to recognize pieces of it that you leverage up to get there. But if you look at that community graph, what you see is that not just A, B, C, and D talk to the center circle, but A and D talk to each other and D and C talk to each other. And that's an evolution of a business owner not feeling like they have to capture everything and have it all funnel through them. That allows for the scalability, but you have to go beyond yourself. You have to be thinking the thing I'm going to contribute is worthwhile that A and D, when they talk to each other, it's a good thing to talk to, and I don't need to take a piece of it. That's how this thing, and basically what you're working for now is influence, how your influence grows beyond your own personal ability. Now, if you're dealing with marketing your company, will it come back to you? Of course it will. They'll reference you, reference your material, especially if you have something to contribute, a certain method or a process that they're referencing, a book you wrote, whatever these earlier broadcast conversation platforms you have, they'll be part of that dialogue in the community. But the community itself is how do I think bigger picture than just what I can handle? What's the one job that I do, or what services do I provide for a company? How do I think and grow beyond that and contribute to the community as a whole? That's the exciting part of it. Joel, inside of RevThink, obviously, many of the people listening, we have our own community, and it's amazing how many different conversations are taking place that we don't have to start them, we don't have to build them up, but there's also a level of responsibility over that we say, hey, we want to still fine tune some of the thinking, or we want to find the channels where a dialogue has started, and you can add to it. You can step into the conversation, add a piece to it, and step back out. And again, I feel like we just give it away on that community platform, right? There's no fee, there's no engagement necessary. It's like, how do we grow and grow and grow? But then the overall evolution of the community is growing under that influence or opportunity we've put there.
Yeah, and if anyone here is curious, right, we are very much on this similar journey that all of you are on. And Tim, you and I and our team, if you go back 5 years ago, we didn't know nothing about nothing in this regard. You and I think, started to recognize, sure, we can communicate people in a broadcast way, but gosh, what if we had personal meetings? And you and I traveled a lot and met with a lot of owners, and that was great, and it was obviously very generous. But then this moment came when we said, I think we should foster a community. And is it selfish? Is it self-serving? Well, maybe someday this will come back to us, but that wasn't really the driving concern. We kind of knew that this was just something that we felt like we should do. And of course, I enjoy it. I enjoy fostering communities and hosting dinners and all that kind of stuff. But to your point, think of all the conversations that are happening in the community, say between people that are direct messaging each other. And we don't have access to that. We don't spy on people. We don't have to own it all. There's this idea of, you've said it this way, like, just the faster I give it away, the more amazing things happen. And I found that to be true too, that there's this one mentality that says, okay, everything that comes my way, I'm going to hoard it and hang on to it, and it doesn't grow. But if you give it away, it does grow in these really weird ways. But you do have to be patient and be willing to risk and know that this is a long game, right? We're gonna be in this industry for decades more. So there's a lot of room for us to give, and a lot that's possible.
Yeah. So maybe there's a good comparisons we can make of what it is and what it isn't, right? Mm-hmm. So for an example, in the early on when we did conferences, we were in the auteur thinking that we were thinking, hey, let's go to a conference. And really our goal was, let's develop a mailing list. So we were doing something. Hey, I'll give the conference something as long as the conference gives me something back in return. Give me a mailing list. So I'll have a room of people, and we exchange. I think we handed out business cards. Remember in ProMax, we're just throwing business cards on the table.
Pass the sheet of paper and write down your name and your email.
Yeah, it was very basic, like that kind of thing. That's a very auteur way of thinking of it. Different is something like, even the Fishbowl event that we have going on, right? In the Fishbowl event, Fishbowl reaches out to us and says, hey, we recognize your community. Would you be able to speak into that community with a topic that they chose? So it's still speaking, it's still a live event, it's still doing what it does, but there's a thought that it evolved where we are invited in, and there's no mailing list needed. The feedback loop already happened. That's why we're being invited. So it's the result of community that we get there. That little shift of it kind of gives you a moment of like what the differences might be and how the scale works and how community grows. But we'll say, like, it doesn't hurt RevThink to speak on Fishbowl. It's right. Also good for RevThink.
But I hope everyone caught that little nuance there of Fishbowl. And I don't even know how. Fishbowl
we don't even know.
Reached out to me however many months ago and said, hey, would you like to be on our platform? Would you like to speak? And we show up, and then there's hundreds of people that are there listening. And I'm like, I don't know how this works, but cool. That's awfully nice. But if you think back of how we got here, we were laying a lot of groundwork by giving away, speaking at conferences. Of course, like I'm doing my dinner next this Tuesday in Denver. It's another great example of, if I can just bring all these amazing people together, I don't have to get anything out of it directly. People, I think, view me as, wow, he's helpful, he's connected, and he's sharing his expertise, and I like the guy, so it's all good.
Yeah, that's another good point of like what it's not. It's not, we're not saying necessarily, you can if this fits your MO, but like we're not saying it's go make a podcast, go create a newsletter, go write a book. We're not telling you which platform works best for you. What we're saying is understand your platform and then leverage it. Your platform might be street art. Well, that's a really great platform that gets some recognition, and if it has a good message to it, you get there. So recognize that that is part of an evolution. You have to understand how platforms work and get involved in a platform. At this point, this imposter syndrome thing is will the community recognize me? How do I know that I'm not just making it up from the inside out, but from the outside in, it comes back to me? So you might not have a podcast, but you might be welcome on others' podcasts because of influence that you had or story that you told. I think of the work we originally did in Moldova. Again, they Googled us, we didn't Google them. We stepped into something we didn't quite understand how it worked, and it was wonderful. It was great, but that evolved us into volunteering for New York City's Small Business Solutions Program. We're doing the Serbia Film Festival group. Like there's like a community service element to what's happening, and that we have something, and just held back inside of us, it doesn't help. But if we can get it out there, it will grow and will have an evolution in and of itself. And then again, it might just be a portion. It might be 4% of all the value you've created comes back to you. It might even be 0.4%. We don't know what it is, but it comes back to you well enough that you can keep on going. But the overall community grows along the way. So we're not saying it's in like when I say influence, I don't mean like an influencer or a social media influencer trying to get the number of bodies on your Instagram. That's great for tour marketing, but we're talking about using your knowledge to build up others. It's influence of what's happening to help the community grow.
Yeah, I was just, you were reminding me. So one of my recent graduates, when they went through the module, it was Tom, that's right, Tom at Gusto Films. He's a community member. And there's this idea of, like you said, Tim, you used the word platform. And for me years ago, that was, I'm going to start a podcast. The reason I did that was very, very strategic, because it played to my strength. I'm a good talker. Because at the time I was convinced I had to write articles, and I was all hung up. And
oh my gosh, remember stressing out about the articles? Oh,
God,
man.
it was brutal. So there actually is a process, right, that you take somebody through to say, what's the platform that plays to my strength, that is in line with my passion and what I care about, and is going to generate community and all these kinds of things. So there is a method to that. And I was just going to mention that Tom, when his team went through this process, what their idea that they came up with for their platform, and he's been posting about it on social media, so you should check it out. Let me see if I can find it. The idea they had was, we're going to create like a regular contest where we're going to invite, we're going to put like 3 editors into a hot seat live, and we're going to give them a bucket of footage and see what they can edit in 30 minutes. And then we're going to have a panelist like judge their work. And it's almost like a game show.
Yeah, it's like one of those Food Network shows. Yeah.
And what was genius about the idea? When I heard it, I said, wait a minute, Tom, what's so brilliant about that, other than it just sounds watchable, and I would totally watch that show. But I said, you're going to foster a community of vendors and creatives, right? Makers and doers. So these are editors, shooters, writers, whatever. But you're also going to foster a community called buyers and clients, because of course you're going to reach out to the client that you want to work with and say, hey, will you come be a judge on this cool game show that we're doing?
Yes.
And then you're the one that's in the middle of all of it, getting these people together and doing these cool events and moving the industry forward and celebrating the creativity and all this. So I just was like, guys, go, 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 go. That's so cool. Do it. And it's a huge undertaking. They're still in that experimental phase. But
and you can do it.
Simpleness, right?
Yeah, and you can do it that sounds elaborate and great and something that you own. You can also use that very similar thinking just inside of conferences that already exist, right? So like the work that we do with Show Launcher, we were invited by NAPI to present something. Patrick Jager and I were invited by NAPI to present something. They gave us the stage. We didn't even know who the audience was, but they filled the SAG a theater 3 times around, standing room only, filled the theater. We had no idea where the marketing was coming from there. We the stage. But the results of that was basically working alongside NAPI for 3 different years and helping them fill out their programs. So we became a collaborator, telling them, oh, you should talk to so-and-so and put them on a stage, or we can reach out to some brands and bring them on stage. And that collaboration we had with NAPI, again, like it doesn't hurt to call a future client and say, hey, future client, would you like to have a stage at NAPI? And of course they do. And then that relationship's built out. So there's leverage you can gain that of course helps currently in the auteur stage, but it's the curator thinking that seeps into that opportunity in your auteur stage, and they work side by side. You don't necessarily ditch one to go the other, but you can grow and evolve from piece to piece. The other one I'd say, Joel, is just going back to our podcast. We rarely talk about this, but we used to write articles, and like I said, we struggled. And if you want to see RevThink, 1.0, where we were writing these articles, go for it. Sometimes I see them splashed on the internet. But even our first podcasts were you and I and 2 microphones at a bar just making stuff up, right? To have that evolve to profiles of the creative career, and now even evolving into this brand new podcast that you're starting as a peel off. And that this fabulous podcast really is your curator evolution. It's not about Joel anymore. It's about how do I point to others and develop this fabulous that's out there and working on behalf of the community. It's really amazing. And that's an evolution just in one career that people are probably following along with, and they can recognize that evolution. And we're just saying there's a pattern to this. You can pattern yourself through it.
Well, I appreciate you like the friendly plug, because we didn't agree we'd mention that, but that's a good.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. It's a good example, and I hope people draw some inspiration from it. I know we got a minute left. If anyone has a comment or a question, of course, feel free to drop it here in the chat. But this concept, I hope is encouraging. I know it's that vague, yeah, but what do I do with that? And I'll just say this. I think what we're doing, Tim, is we're almost like we're tickling people's sense that there is more out there. It's not just, yes, of course, we can use marketing and platforms to grow our business today, of course. But there's this other season as you move from auteur to curator that's going to involve other peopleness that's probably beyond your creative firm today. So just be on the lookout for it.
I also feel like when you are stuck in that imposter syndrome, it really helps to get permission to go do it. But you need to know, and I'm telling you right now, I don't know who I'm talking to, but it is universally true for you as anyone else. Just know that you were created for this time and this generation. Like there is something that is inside of you that you have to contribute to others. That's why we're here. That's how humans work, is community. So the fact that you are alive and doing something, especially something that's great. If you're listening to RevThink, we know that you're one of the greatest people out there in this industry doing this work. Please don't hold it back inside of you. We give you permission to just let it out, let it see what it does. And you don't have to control it. And I think that permission to let it go and see where it takes you is the next step of the journey. That's what we want you to have a takeaway. And then we'll just say like the evolution is amazing and it gives you more security. And I think that is really what you want to know. Will it help your current business? Of course it will, but will it help you in your evolution of career? Absolutely.
Well said, man. That was like a killer benediction, right? Like RevThink's here to like help you thrive in business life and career. I'm going to be like, it's through the process of unleashing this awesomeness that I know everybody here has. So if we can be a catalyst to that, then of course that makes me incredibly happy to see my people thrive and make the world a better place. Honestly, I mean, I know it's a bit cheesy, but it indeed is part of this process that we're all here for. Well, Tim, we should wrap it up. We're 1 minute past our half hour. I hope everyone here got something out of this, even though I know it was a bit nebulous and fuzzy.
Well, I appreciate being part of it. It's nebulous and fuzzy because we're talking about the evolution of something that is not as strict as running a business or doing cash flow, but it's just as important, if not more important, to know where you're going with it. So,
Well, I think we
appreciate
agreed
you being
today.
here and making this happen.
I think we actually agreed today on our team call. We are going to do some sort of a workshop a few weeks from now on cash flow and roll up and all that stuff. So we'll come back to that more practical stuff soon enough.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for everyone for being here. We appreciate you. We're here to help you thrive and support you in all that you do. So, of course, feel free to reach out to me or Tim on our team through Rev Community. Until then, make it a great rest of the week. And Tim, I'll see you back next Thursday.
And join us for Fishbowl tonight. If you want to hear what's the Fishbowl topic, how to pitch.
Oh, well, it's not what you pitch, it's how. All right. So we're going to talk a lot about the delivery and the communication and setting things up so you can do your best, because we all have great ideas in our pitch decks, but what's all that other stuff we have to do?
So at 7 p.m. Eastern, Fishbowl, go to our LinkedIn pages. We'll put their information there if you want to join us.
All right. Thanks, Fio. Cool. We'll see you there. All right. Bye, Tim. Thanks, everyone.
Of course. Later.